Hi, I'm Nick Kolev, and thank you for joining this episode of Startup Bright. This is the time and place we talk all about startups. In this episode, I have invited Jasmine. We are going to talk about her company, Pitch Genius, and how she helps startups in their journey. We met at, was that Tech Day? Do you remember?
Yes,
Yeah,
wow.
and
Two
that
years,
was about year and a half, 2 years ago, maybe.
definitely, yeah.
Yeah, and you had a booth there, and we connected, and I'm glad to have you on this episode of Startup Bright. So, Jasmine, can you tell us a little bit more about Pitch Genius and how you help startups?
Yeah, definitely. So at Pitch Genius, we basically do everything and anything that a founder needs in order to prepare before they speak with investors, before they start fundraising. And so that's everything from the financial model to the pitch deck to market sizing. We basically have a 6 to 8 week process to make sure that we have all of their ducks in a row before they start pitching investors. So, yeah.
So basically, you are getting early stage startups, and you're kind of educating and training them how they present in front of investors.
Exactly. And we think that, a lot of the reason why fundraising processes end up being so long and that timeline ends up being so long is because founders rush into the process of pitching, and they aren't fully prepared before they start pitching. And so they go to market with a deck that doesn't tell the right story, that doesn't do the right thing for them, and it closes doors instead of opening them. And so it's our every intention to slow the founder down, really educate them, get them fully prepared, and hopefully see them get funded. And that's actually our core mission at Pitch Genius, is to get more startups funded. That's our tagline. And preparing for fundraising is a very key component of that.
Yeah, I can understand, what you said about startups getting too early in the process of fundraising. And I know I have been in an incubator program myself, and that program lasted, I think it was about 5 months or something like that.
Awesome.
And they were preparing us mainly to pitch in front of investors. And the help was great, but we also I specifically needed help with um, sales and how to prepare myself to meet with customers.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't have obviously a program in an incubator to fit every single company that is in that program.
It's true.
It needs individual attention. And my understanding is that you guys start from the story, and then you continue working with these startups, and you get them in front of investors. Is that right?
So we don't have a formal process for this yet, but we do have an investor network that we're constantly building. And anytime we can make an introduction to our clients, we absolutely will. We have a very strong and trusted network of professionals, advisors, startup advisors, lawyers. It doesn't matter. Whatever the startup needs along their journey while they're working with us, we will connect them to our network to make sure they have what they need to get fundraising. Connecting them with investors is the next step of doing that. We do it all the time. It's just a little more informal than we would like, but that is to come soon.
Yeah. So let's say I'm a startup and I am interested in your services, or no, let's change that. I am a founder, and frankly, I don't know what to do.
Yes.
I have a product. I'm a little bit further in my startup development, and
Yes.
I have a product, which was actually my case. I had a product and then I didn't know what to do next.
Yes.
Is it too late? Is it too early to get in contact with you? Or this is the right time to actually seek help and contact you?
Oh yeah, no, that's the perfect time to reach out. That's the perfect time to reach out. And it's honestly, our ideal client is that first time founder that has never raised money before, because our process is so educational and there's coaching embedded throughout the entire service. Because again, like, we're here to fully prepare you. It's not just about the pitch deck and giving you a great marketing tool for fundraising. It's not just about making sure that your financial model is prepared and you know how to talk through, well, your financial model is prepared. It's also about knowing how to pitch your financial model and walk the investor through it. It's also about understanding why we've created the story that we've created for you. It's also about understanding, your why now. So no, that's a perfect time to reach out to us, especially if you've never raised money before. I mean, first time founders are raising money all the time now, but you just need to be prepared for what is to come and what that is like and what questions you're going to get asked and answered. So that's also a part of our process, which I love, is like, at a certain point, we'll give you a full list of questions based on your market and based off of your business that they can expect to hear from investors. So they can go and practice, so they can go talk to their team about it. And again, so they can practice and prepare before getting in front of the investor.
You do much more than just pitch decks, adjustments, and review, right?
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit more about, why are you saying that you're storytellers, creators, researchers? What is behind these statements?
Yeah, that's a great question. So when you're putting a pitch deck together, so much more goes into it than just talking about your idea, your product, your service, and how much money you need, right? Like, you need to create a very compelling argument and story about why you're fundraising and why you're a good investment opportunity. And so we're researchers because every service begins and every process starts with digging into the research and the market opportunity, sizing it, figuring out what relevant trends and key drivers there are for this market. Why now is a good time to invest in this market, right? So we are researchers and we do all of that analysis. We're storytellers because there are so many investment opportunities around these days, okay? And before, you could get away with this boilerplate, like, problem, solution, market opportunity, pitch deck that included like 12 slides. But now everybody has that pitch deck, and investors are getting so many deals, right? They consider it deal flow, that it's harder to stand out. And so what's going to make you stand out and stick in the minds of investors is a really good story to tell about your opportunity. And we don't mean just a story about like your personal connection to why you started the startup, right? It goes far beyond that. So we are researchers in that we figure out what's going on in your market opportunity. We are storytellers in that we tell a really good story about the market opportunity and investment opportunity at hand. We have great, design skill on the team, but that's not our core competence. Like, your deck is going to look good and it's important for everything to look good, but our core competence goes much deeper. And really like lands at understanding how to communicate with investors and we build the deck understanding how the investor is analyzing that startup as an investment opportunity. And so we speak directly to those points.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. I remember when we were preparing for this pitch in front of investors. Everybody presented their pitch decks, and we were all over the place, right? Inconsistent messages, graphics, and text, they don't tell the same story, and very confusing. And we kind of distilled the whole thing to, problem, solution, market, deal. As you said, you present this 10 slides and you have only 3 minutes to do so. And although we present different ideas and different solutions for different problems, at the end, it starts to sound the same, right? To a certain degree. If you follow that framework, I like having that framework because for an investor, it probably simplifies what they can expect, right? Because if you have hundreds of deals every day to review, you probably going to benefit from some sort of a framework. But at the same time, you get one of these 100 deals as an investor looking at these deals, and you lose your identity. You're losing your story. And I absolutely can appreciate what you do and how you review pitch decks and help startups doing that.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah.
Um, I see that you have different services, and that is all on your website, pitchgenius.co. Can you explain a little bit more in details what is hidden behind this services and offerings on your website?
Yeah, absolutely. So the two most common services that we do are either building the entire pitch from scratch and or building the entire financial model and pitch from scratch. And so again, it's like a 6 to 8 to 10 week process, depending on how much research you would like. We can do both a retainer fee for our team and or a full-on package. It'll just depend on how much you need to and want to lean on us to prepare you. And the service and the process is really built to take it off of your hands. I mean, especially for founders who are already, gaining traction, they're trying to hire people, they're trying to grow and focus on the business. We've built it in a way where we're really focused on just getting the information we need from the client, interviewing them, and then really taking the entire process from there, from building the model, building doing the research, building a story. And then the next time we really bother the client is when we're presenting this brand new deck with fresh market research, with the model that works. And then, of course, we collaborate and tweak the messaging to make sure that we perfect it at the end there. But yeah, our services are listed on our website. We are a boutique firm. And so, we kind of are at that place where we pick and choose our projects very carefully. But at the same time, we have services that can touch everyone and reach everyone. So everybody has, access to the methodology, which is what Pitch Genius comes down to. It's like, we have this really great methodology. It works. I've been building it over the past 6 years. And that's why 42% of our clients have successfully raised funds. It's all in that methodology and the approach that we take.
42% funded is a really great number. Do you have startups that you're proud of, or stories to tell about some of these startups? How did they get funded, or how did they develop?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think my favorite moments are and we just got an email like this that last week where a client is like, 115 pitches later, we finally got our seed, right? And thank you so much. We need to talk again because we're doing some kind of pitch competition to get more exposure and raise even more money. And I love hearing that. And I have to be clear in that, 42% of our clients raise funds not because like your pitch deck is this magic tool that's just going to raise money for you, right? It's not. Like the founder needs to close the deal and needs to do a lot of follow-up and make sure that they're doing the level of outreach that they need to raise the money. But I think I know our success rate is high and is at that 42% because we're building a deck that is going to open as many doors as possible for the client. That's how we build it. That's a part of the methodology is what is that teaser deck? What is that full reading deck, that standalone deck that's going to get the investor to ask for a meeting? And the more that you can convert investors into meetings, the more likely you are to fundraise. It becomes a numbers game at some point. Now, the inverse of that is going to market with a deck that does not translate or communicate the investment opportunity and closes doors for you. And so that's why the pitch deck is so critical, is because it makes the difference of opening a door and landing a meeting with an investor versus closing a door with an investor and probably losing that lead forever. Like the likelihood of like getting that investor to be interested again it's possible, but it hurts your chances. And so yeah.
Yeah, it definitely makes sense. You said something that made me think about this. I see a lot of founders that focus on the pitch deck only. And the problem is that the pitch deck is just a presentation or your hook, your way to say hello to an investor and get them interested in what you are doing. But behind the pitch deck, you have to have your business model, you have to have your business plan, you have to have all answers that can eventually this deck will make the investor ask, right? So a lot of times I see people fail. So they have good pitch deck, they generated some interest, and then there is no conversation after that because they're not ready.
Yes, and that hurts. That hurts, especially because if you have worked that hard on creating your deck, you've probably spent like 60 plus, 80 plus hours on it, months of preparing it, tweaking, fine-tuning it to a point of nauseum. But yeah, you're totally right. It actually is just your entryway to a much larger conversation, and being prepared for that conversation is what's going to help you close. And so yeah, it's I think that's a part of what I love about what I do is that, and what we do at Pitch Genius is that like we get to bring the reality to founders of what's going to happen so they know how to prepare themselves. I think that's a part of why founders go to market too soon, is because they just think they're behind and they need to raise, right? And they are not realizing what is to come ahead and what the next steps are and what conversations they need to prepare for. So we love, we just love what we do. We love like basically waking up founders to the reality of that situation and giving them that sense of confidence before they speak with investors.
Let me ask you about business plans. Do you, because it's a very controversial nowadays topic, some people still say we need business plan before we move ahead. Others say business plan is something from the past. Nobody looks at the business plan anymore. What is your experience? What do you suggest and what is your advice?
I think the business plan is a fantastic tool for you to organize your thoughts and figure out what your business plan is. And so, every once in a while we have someone come who wants to work with us, but they have no idea what their market entry strategy is. They have no idea like what initial markets they want to go after. And if you are that early on, then an incubator, an accelerator, or sitting down to work out a full business plan as an exercise for yourself is really critical. Do you need it for fundraising? I say no. But will you run into investors that that still want the business plan? Yes, that does still happen. But, the pitch deck was birthed out of the business plan, right? That's why the pitch deck came around, is because in the 90s, the dot-com boom era, all of a sudden there were so many investment opportunities. Investors were like, I don't want to read your business plan. I don't have time. I want your pitch deck. So I really do think that the pitch deck does suffice. If you have an investor that is just absolutely requiring a 20 to 25 page business plan, and that's going to be your lead investor, then hey, you're going to write it up. But I don't think it's critical for fundraising, but having a business plan is critical for just in general to have prepared before you build your deck. So I see it more of as an exercise for the founder now than a necessity. And, to a certain degree, your investor deck, like the full version, your full pitch, you are going over your business plan. It's just a condensed version of it. So, yeah.
Yeah, that is basically what I thought, because even if an investor or investors, even if they don't ask you for business plan, you still have to have that in your head, and be ready, be prepared to answer questions that are actually part of building the business plan.
Oh, yeah.
They will gonna ask you all these questions that, no need to have the business plan, but they will probably most likely expect you to explain it, right?
Well, yeah. I can't tell you how many founders I speak to who want to raise money but have no execution strategy for that money. And it's like, well, then you're not ready to raise. If you don't know how much you need to raise and what you're going to use that money for, okay, like what you're going to execute on, then why are you raising money? You don't know what you need it for. And that, again, so it's, I think that founders sometimes get confused because we're hearing a lot of this, like, you don't need a business plan. You don't need like every single detail written down of how you're going to build the business. Yes, that's true. But I think people get lost in that idea of like, oh, it's just a bunch of hot air. It's just guesstimations. Yes, but also the reality is that you need an approach for entering the market. You need an approach on how you're going to execute this money to figure out the right, business model to expand, right? Whatever stage that you're in. So, having the execution strategy in your mind or figured out through research and conversation and, speaking with potential customers, like, yes, you definitely need that. You definitely need that. So I hope that's made clear. Yeah. And I guess just another point. If a founder is asking you or an advisor, how much money do you think we should raise? That's how you know that they're not ready to fundraise, because you know how much you need to raise because you've put an execution strategy together, and you know how much it's going to cost to execute that strategy over the next 12 to 18 months. And you are raising for that 12 to 18 month runway. So you should have a number in your head. It's a number that you should be able to answer, speak to, and then provide an entire execution strategy for.
Yeah, I had a startup interview with the startup, and then talked to the founder, and he was really ready with his numbers. And the thing is, he talked to some of the investors in our private network, and the investors, they always try to understand how prepared the founder is and how
Yes.
well they understand their market and their own idea.
Yes.
Right? So the investors, they ask him, okay, you're asking for let's say $1 million of funds, but we are ready to give you, only $800,000. And the
Yes.
founder said, yeah, I can accept that, but instead of 18 months of runway, that is going to give me, 12 months of runway. And I don't want to be in the position to start looking funding in next 6 months, right? I need time to develop and research my market and
Totally.
change my business model if I need to, and things like that. And that was extremely good answer, because that shows that this founder knows very well his numbers and where he was going with his idea and his company. So that was very impressive thing that I saw.
Absolutely. Yeah, that is a perfect answer. And it also, something that we coach our founders on all the time. And it's something I love preaching in the tech community, is that your relationship with your investors is a partnership, right? It needs to be, it has to be. It's not just, we're at the beck and call and will of all of of all of the investors. There's a mutual relationship there. And so I bring that up because this founder that you're talking about is also telling his investors, like, don't you want me to have a long enough runway to reach a return on investment and to ensure that your investment is more secure, right? It's almost like the investor wants to give less and a shorter runway because they're trying to mitigate risk for themselves, right? They're like, no, we'll just give you this much for now to see how long, what you'll get accomplished within this next 12 months, and then we'll invest again. Whereas the founder is saying, actually, that's a little more risky because I need a full 18 months to make sure that I hit the metrics that I want to hit. And then you can invest more money in. And honestly, like, a more savvy investor probably has learned that lesson the hard way as they've done angel investing, is that it's really important to give the founder, especially at an early stage, at least 18 months of runway. And that's what founders should really be asking for, is 18 months. And honestly, actually, once COVID hit, that moved to 24 months, right? Because we had so much uncertainty that it was like, if you're making any investments right now, you're going to make sure that it lasts well beyond the pandemic. So anyways, yeah, everybody's trying to mitigate their risk. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, you're right, but I also have seen very interesting situations where, as you mentioned, a savvy investor actually is easier to talk to and negotiate than somebody that is just starting out, or trying to understand the whole ecosystem of startup investment. So it almost makes me say that if you're first time founder looking for funding, you should be working with savvy investors, because they can understand you and they can help you grow, right?
Yes.
Because if you have two people that are not exactly experienced in what they're doing, the risk is very high for both sides, right? So that is one thing that I kind of, it's not necessarily written and it's not a rule,
Of
but
course.
this is what I saw before COVID, of course, with a lot of startups and personal meetings and interviews.
Yeah, I think that's completely fair. And if it is the case that, you're a first time founder with an inexperienced investor, that could work out if you have the right advisors. You need someone on your side, on your team, that has been through the fundraising process or has taken a company to exit, who has managed a use of funds before and can help you through that process. Because you don't know it until you do it. Like, you just don't. So you need someone on your side that has the experience, that can hold your hand through it, in a sense, and who you can go to with your problems. But yeah, I think you're completely right. Savvy investors are easier to talk to because they know how important it is for lines of communication to be open there, and for there to be that trust and that partnership. Without it, it's a much more difficult journey for sure.
Yeah. Thank you, Jasmine, for this interview. It's very
Thank you.
eye-opening.
Good.
And tell us, how startups can find you.
Yeah, please connect with me on LinkedIn and follow our page, our LinkedIn page, Pitch Genius, Co LLC, or just Pitch Genius, whichever one it is. But we're constantly posting updates on workshops that we're doing, resources that we can share, and making announcements about the company and where it's going. So yeah, LinkedIn would be your best bet.
Yeah, thank you. I will put all this information on our profile for your company for pitchgenius.co and try to make it easy for startups to find you.
That would be great. Yeah. And the website is www.pitchgenius.co, not .com. So yeah, please go ahead and check that out and connect with us. And thank you, Nicolay, for having us. I mean, this was perfect. I love interviews like this. It was a great conversation.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thanks. Bye.